All right, hi everyone. So we're finishing up chapter 8. We have the last two Mishnayot. We're still dealing with the idea of things that can or cannot be carried between domains on Shabbat based on the measure and the quality of these things. Are these things that are useful or that someone would want to store and keep for some kind of explicit kind of purpose? Is it enough? Is it good enough to have value? That would make it an issue. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 8, Mishnah 6. Etzem kedei lasod tarvad. Bone, enough to make a spoon. So enough to make a useful tool. That's the smallest kind of useful tool that's made out of bone. Rabbi Yehuda omer, kedei lasod mimenu chav. Rabbi Yehuda says, enough to make with it the tooth of a key. So Rabbi Yehuda is saying, it doesn't actually have to be like the tool implement itself. It could just be a single part of it that isn't functional on its own. But the fact that it's a part of it is sufficient enough for it to be something that would be problem to carry, that would be something that's useful. Again, Rabbi Yehuda here is giving a smaller measure, so he's being more strict therefore. Okay, zechuchit kedei ligror bo rosh hakarkar. Glass enough to scrape the point of a weaver's needle, so enough glass to sharpen something. Tzurur o even kedei lizrok be'ov. Rabbi Eliezer bar Yaakov omer kedei lizrok bivhema. So a pebble or a stone enough to throw at a bird to scare it away. Rabbi Eliezer bar Yaakov says it needs to be large enough to scare away an animal. So a bird might be frightened very easily. It wouldn't really be sufficient. So he's giving a different interpretation that needs to be larger, therefore more substantive. Therefore he's being, in essence, more lenient here. Okay, Mishnah 7. Cheres kedei liten bein patsim lachavero, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. A shard needs to be large enough to place between one board and another. So if you're making up, these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. So if you're putting beams together and they're not perfect fit, they don't match up exactly, and there's shards that are put in between to compensate for that difference in size. So it needs to be one that's sufficient for doing that. Rabbi Meir omer kedei lachtot bo et haor. Rabbi Meir, so now we're still talking about the same thing, we're talking about shards. Rabbi Meir says it needs to be large enough to pick up fire with it. Meaning it needs to, so there you're trying to protect your hands, you want a tool that's good for picking up like hot coals, for example. So he's giving a bigger measure. Rabbi Yossi omer, kedei lekabel bo revi'it. Rabbi Yossi says it needs to be enough to hold a revi'it, just a measure of volume. So that could be, certainly the Rabbi Yehuda measure was smaller than the Rabbi Meir measure. The Rabbi Yossi measure, I'm not sure exactly where that fits in, perhaps in between, or maybe larger. Okay, Amar Rabbi Meir, afal pish ein ra'aya ladavar zeicher ladavar. Okay, so Rabbi Meir says, although there is no proof to the matter, there is an intimation of the matter. There's a hint, and he's going to give a verse now from the Bible. V'lo yimatzei Vim chitato cheres lachtot esh miakud. So he gives a verse from Isaiah, and there shall not be found among its pieces a shard with which to pick up fire from the hearth. So he's saying that is letting you know that is a significant amount, a piece of a shard to pick up fire with. Amar lo Rabbi Yossi, misham raya, is that really where your proof is coming from? Ve lachsof mayim migeve. So he actually says the conclusion of the verse that says, or to scoop up water from a pit. So the idea of it being something to hold this small volume of liquid is really what it's saying is which is less than the other one would be, oh, there we go. That's our answer to the question I asked before about how we rank those three. And therefore he's saying, how is that proof when the second half of this verse says something different, says that it actually maybe this smaller measure is significant enough to count, to be an issue for carrying. Okay, great. So that's the end of chapter 8, and we'll continue with chapter 9 next week. Hope everyone has a great week. Bye.